All right, folks, on today's Roland Martin Unfiltered, new bombs sent to Senator Kamala Harris and Democratic donor Tom Steyer. A suspect is in custody. Conservatives, they got egg on their face because they said first the bombs were fake, then they said it wasn't a conservative. Bombs are real, and the guy loves Trump. We'll give you all the details. Also, more voter suppression in Georgia as the GOP, no shock, fights a federal court order and thousands of requests for absentee ballots go missing in a liberal county. What the hell is going on in my home state of Texas? They are admitting that 30% of the voting machines in Texas are switching votes for Democrat to Republican. Seriously, y'all. What did we tell you what's going on? Also in Florida, the race is tight and Republican Ron, don't monkey this up, DeSantis is getting heat over his association with white supremacists. His opponent, Andrew Gillum, has the perfect explanation. Also, progress on voting rights, but not enough for students at Prairie View A&M University. The state senator breaks it down live from Texas. Royce West, one of two black state senators. Also, Megyn Kelly out at NBC, but the issue of blackface was a conversation last night on ABC's Nightline. We'll show you my segment. Plus, Republican candidate for Maryland, Attorney General, is here with his plan to protect the 4 HBCUs in Maryland. Folks, also, the young black conservatives got together today at the White House. Oh, they were so excited and so happy. And guess what? Class was in session, and Uncle Roro was spanking them, taking them to school. I will give you all of the details. Candace Owens was not at all happy to see Uncle Roro. I wonder why. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's Uncle Roro, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
Oh, folks, after several days of it being scary in the United States as bombs are being mailed to a number of Democrats, 12 in total, a suspect is now in custody in the state of Florida. And we also know that the suspect is a huge supporter of Donald Trump. It was this afternoon, actually it was around 10 o'clock when the FBI began to hone in on a man who actually, very shockingly, was discovered because of his fingerprint that was on an envelope that was sent to Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And so there were other letters that were sent to President Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, VP Joe Biden, Eric Holder, and so many others. There's lots of fear that was taking place. The suspect's name is Cesar Sayoc, and here's a photo of him at a Trump rally. First of all, right here, here's also a picture of his van filled with pro-Trump and anti-democratic and anti-media stickers. Now, conservatives were trying to say, even Donald Trump tweeted, oh, this is fake, it's a hoax. The bombs weren't even real. But federal authorities say, not true. Attorney General Jeff Sessions had to admit that he might have been partisan. Here's the question and Sessions' answer.
Sessions, could you tell us plainly why was he targeting Democrats?
I don't know, other than what you might normally expect. He may have been appears to be a partisan.
And folks, not only that, President Donald Trump, again, he was the one who was tweeting, oh, this is fake. And of course, Geraldo Rivera also was saying the exact same thing. And I'm going to pull up in a second, Candace Owens, the darling of the conservative movement. She tweeted, there's a 0 chance this was a conservative. Guess who's now deleted her tweet? See what happens when you do that? Go to my panel right now, Brandon Cooper, Prince George's County Republican Party, and also Shannon Wright, of course, who's also with the Maryland Republican Party as well. Folks, here's the thing that, so I tweeted yesterday to Geraldo. I said, dude, pump your brakes. I said, we don't know. Let the FBI do their job. Because he's like, FBI needs to hurry up. I said, no, they don't. The FBI should take their time to track down the clues. Again, Candace Owens throws out there, Trump, fake, Limbaugh, Democrats did this. Now we know the truth. And this is the problem to me where folks are so hyper-partisan, they want to immediately jump to it. And on my show, I said, we're not going to speculate on who is behind this because you let the authorities do what they're supposed to do and not jump to conclusions.
You're right, but you're saying the hyper-partisan nature of it. You're right. Both sides jump into conclusions at the very beginning. As you mentioned, some of the far-right commentators were quick to say that it was not a Republican, that it was a false flag attack, which I thought from the very beginning is something that you don't know and shouldn't be saying. At the same time, some hosts on CNN were quick to point out and try to make a connection to Trump. Personally, I think whether you're a Republican or Democrat, you need to condemn these types of attacks. We saw last year a Bernie Sanders supporter take a gun to a baseball field and actually shoot Republican congressmen. And so I don't think Bernie Sanders is responsible for that crazy wacko last year, and no less do I think Trump is responsible for what happened this year with the Trump supporter. Both sides have divisive languages, and we need to take a step back, as you mentioned, and try to walk away from this divisive, hyper-partisan nature we have right now in politics.
But Shannon, the thing is, look, it's amazing. We're very quick to say, well, so-and-so has some responsibility. But we cannot deny the reality that rhetoric plays a role in how people respond.
Oh, it absolutely.
If you look at that guy's van, CNN sucks and all sorts of stuff along those lines, I mean, look, Trump can say, he's already said, I had nothing to do with it. You can't put any blame on me. No, but you're a 72-year-old grown man, and the rhetoric that you use has a role in how your supporters take it and infer it.
So, in my opinion, we're all responsible. Those that are elected and those that vote for them. If you don't hold your elected folks accountable to let them know this is unacceptable, they're going to do what they feel they need to do to either get in office or stay there. So it's up to those that are elected, looking to be elected, and voting to say, listen, we need to have a little bit of civility. We need to take a couple steps back on all parties and all sides. This is just ridiculous. There used to be a certain level of respect for the office of the president, regardless of who was in it. There used to be a certain level of respect for our congresspeople and our senators. And that word seems to have gone out the window.
And I'll be honest, this is what I said. I said this on ABC this week. And I was very clear. President Reagan, President Bush, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama. I said I was raised to respect the office of president. I said the issue that I have is that Trump doesn't respect the office of president. And I said, and when he does, I'll call him President Trump. Until then, I'm going to call him Donald Trump. I'm sorry. I cannot respect a president who uses the language that he uses. I can't respect a president who comes out and says today, oh no, I've toned down my rhetoric against the media. I should turn it up even more so. I can't. When I was standing outside the White House today, I had one of the young black conservatives say, well, Trump really doesn't lie that much. I was like, bro, come on now, Doc. I said, come on. I said, yeah, we've already have documented about 4,000 lies. I said, so maybe you don't consider that to be that much. And the fact that folks somehow want to live in denial, that to me is the fundamental problem that I have.
So as long as we agree, and I think we do, that there is room to grow on both sides as far as divisive rhetoric, I do agree that Trump has taken it to an unlevel,
I don't want there to be room to grow.
I mean, room to reduce.
Rhetoric. No. What I want is you can have policy debates, you can have those things. But what I'm not going to do is I can't give somebody a pass who says, oh, beat the hell out of him and I'll pay your legal bills. I can't.
That's not cool.
He's taking it to a new level. I do agree with
cool.
that. But I do agree that there's also instances, whether it's Eric Holder talking about there were supporters, Maxine Waters talking about going after the children of Trump administration.
When you heard,
again, I'm not saying that
when
they're
you heard
equal,
Eric Holder say that you actually think Eric Holder was saying physically?
Again, it's not about me to the same person, but to his supporters, I think it does add to the crowd.
How did you infer it?
It doesn't matter.
Me personally, I don't take it as a grain of salt. But there are 310 million people in this country.
I got you.
You gotta be careful with your rhetoric. That's all I'm saying.
And clearly, someone today that is now under arrest took things out of hand as well. So we all have to be careful. Even if he didn't mean it literally, he meant it figuratively. I get it. Most folks would get it, but clearly there are those out here on all sides that don't, and we'll take it to that extreme. And I think that unless we really, well, there's a couple other things, but unless we really dial back and start to show some civility, some respect, and really pay attention to the issues at hand and cut all the drama, let the drama stay on TV.
Well, but the reality is we have drama that's also created. We saw this in Louisville, Kentucky, and where two African Americans were gunned down by a white man in and around a Kroger supermarket in Jeffersontown, Kentucky, near Louisville. The dead are Maurice Stollard and Vicky Lee Jones. The alleged shooter is Gregory Bush. Surveillance video showed that 10 to 15 minutes before the grocery store shooting, Bush tried to enter the First Baptist Church in Jeffersontown. A member of the church, the black church, was waiting in the parking lot and saw the suspect banging on and pulling the door, trying to get inside. It was locked, but 90 minutes earlier, the door was unlocked and 70 people were inside. It could have been another massacre like the one at Emmanuel AME in Charleston in 2015. After Bush failed to get into the church, he went to the Kroger supermarket and allegedly killed those 2 African Americans. Right after that, a citizen armed with a gun engaged the shooter in the parking lot, but the suspect was able to flee before police captured him on a nearby road. This chilling account was provided by the son of the civilian with the gun. This is what he told a local television station.
Don't shoot me, I won't shoot you. He's like, whites don't kill whites.
He said what?
Whites don't kill whites.
Think about it. This is a man who gunned down 2 African Americans in a grocery store because they were black. Today we learned that the killings are being investigated as a possible hate crime. You throw your hands up, Brandon, like, possible?
Yeah, I just finished law school, as you know, and so I know how difficult it is sometimes to prosecute hate crimes, but based off the witness account of him saying, I'm doing it based off race.
Yeah, whites don't kill whites. Yeah. I'm here to kill 2 black people.
I think it's hard to prosecute hate crimes. I think this will be one where we'll see a hate crime prosecution come forth.
I didn't go to law school, but if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's for folks like you that did to prove it, but we all know what it is.
And this is very similar, of course, to what happened last year in New York, where there was a guy who killed a black man with a samurai sword, and the guy said he was walking around saying, I'm trying to kill black people.
And he was clear about it. He wasn't ashamed. He was clear about it. So if folks are that clear, what are we not clear about? Yeah. I mean, there are some issues that need to be addressed in this country, and it is unfortunate and a shame that there have to be incidents where folks lose their life to remind us, oh yeah, that's never been addressed, or oh yeah, we still need to fix this, we still need to fix that. And when it comes time to election, people look at things and they break it down to, well, it's this party or it's that party. No, it's people. And we have to address the issues with people.
We have, of course, a little bit earlier today, folks, we were at the White House. There was right now happening in D.C. is a Young Black Conservative Summit put on by Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk, of course, is with that group, and also Candace Owens. She's all of a sudden the it girl among conservatives. Brandon is raising his eyebrows, and of course, all of a sudden Kanye is praising her, and she's got 800,000 Twitter followers, and folks are doing these glowing profiles of her. Well, here's the deal. Their conference started yesterday. Last night, Donald Trump Jr., he, of course, spoke to them. I'm going to pull up one of his tweets earlier. So one of the things they were complaining about, major media not covering it. Well, here's the deal. We actually tried to get credentials to cover the summit. We got a letter from them saying we were approved. Then it was like, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Y'all are not approved. Because the real deal is Candace Owens chose to block us. She's blocked me on Twitter because she can't actually stand a level of accountability. But see, here's the problem. They don't control the White House. And I've been invited to numerous things at the White House. And so she was a little shocked when she saw me at the White House. But first off, they were in the East Room where Donald Trump spoke to them. Before him, Secretary Ben Carson spoke to them as well. And they claim it was about 400 people. I've been in the East Room, it's been packed. It wasn't 400 people. But again, this is some of what took place today.
Let me mention something. Baltimore,
Yeah.
Most of those police officers are black. Most police officers, it's not always white folks.
Oh, no, and I've said that on the show. It's about respecting authority. Because here's the piece. But it's not even disrespecting authority. For instance, I'll give you an example. There's a brother who was in Connecticut. I told him, he said, get on your knees. Dude, the video was stunning. Go look it up.
In the hallway.
No. This is the brother. This is him going down.
Right.
Okay. This is the cop. kicks him straight in the head.
That's an abuse of power.
No, hold on. Knocks his brother out cold. Goes to trial. He's acquitted.
Well, how do you balance that with a Michael Brown?
Right.
So is it about
an Obama administration?
Wait a minute. Is it about police? Is it about police or just white police?
He asked the question. What I've said, not just here, I've said on television, that it's not just a question of white cop versus black cop. It's also a question of blue. So, for instance, imagine a gun. Brother, there's a brother right now in Chicago, okay? This is one of the most thuggish cops. He's black. They've had 30 cases that they've had to actually get rid of because he was involved in those 30 cases. It's not, the question is not, everything is not always white, black. Right. It's also blue. So, for instance, so I give a perfect example. The black cop who was killed in Baltimore. When the last time you known of a cop who got killed and they ain't arrested the person who did it?
He was speaking.
Roland,
if you know who it is, then you're not going to be able to arrest him. If you don't know who it is, you're not going to be able to arrest him.
No. I guarantee.
So, do they have the suspect?
It was one of the cops who did it.
Okay.
You know why? Is that brother was testifying with the following week to the grand jury. Because, bro, you ain't never.
This guy.
You ain't never known.
I mean, but what happened though? But who did it?
One of the cops did. All right, y'all. That was a conversation that took place outside of the White House after Trump spoke. Here is Trump speaking to the young black conservatives.
Thank you very much. What a group. We are grateful to Kanye West. How about Kanye? I don't know. And, you know, Kanye was very interesting because we get these poll numbers and a lot of them are fake polls. I call them fake polls. And one of the pollsters comes, Kanye leaves, and Kanye's really a great guy. He's a little different, do we say? He's a little different. But he's a smart guy and a good guy. And Kanye came up and he hugged me, and he's wearing the Make America Great Again cap, and he said, this cap, I feel like Superman. But he understands he's really something very, very special and interesting, and I see why people like him. But he came up, and a couple of days go by, and the pollsters come in. You know, you're falling asleep. They're giving you the same numbers that they've been for the... Sir, what's happened with the African-American community? I said, I don't know. Tell me, what's happening? I don't know. I wasn't thinking. They said, your numbers have gone up like 26 points, which is unheard of. And so I think Kanye, he may be the most powerful man in all of politics.
All right, folks. So here's the deal, because this is very interesting. So let me tell y'all what happened. All right. So before Trump comes in and speaks, and so we're in the back of the East Room. All the media's back there, and so a couple of cats walk up to me, Mr. Martin, good to see you. How you doing? And so we're just taking pictures or whatever. And so then like a couple of others come. So there's this one young brother. I don't know where he was from, and so he's decked out in all kind of Trump stuff. And so he's just like ranting and raving, and just getting just real loud and crazy. And so he's like, well, you know, how dare you support Planned Parenthood, aborting kids? He's going on and on and on. He says, government money's been used to abort kids. I said, brother, you know there's a thing called the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits the use of federal funds for abortions. No, I never heard of the Hyde Amendment. I said, look, they said, do me a favor. I said, if you're going to come in the White House and start spouting stuff, I said, can you please at least go read before you start talking? Or at least attempt to Google it right now. So then all of a sudden, several other brothers start coming over, and so they're talking. And so then we're engaged back and forth, and like in other media, all of a sudden are turning cameras on. Like, what the hell's going on? Because like literally it's me, and it's about 5 or 6 or 7 people, and I'm just sitting there kind of like, okay, take on you, then you, then you, then you. I'm like, ain't the first time that's happened. But and so the same thing happened outside. Here's the problem I have. First of all, we've had black conservatives for decades. This ain't new. We've had young black conservatives for a long time. This isn't new. The problem that I have is most of them don't know a damn thing about the history of black Republicans. They were spouting stuff, and I'm going, you don't even know who Arthur Fletcher is. You don't even know who any of these folks are. And I'm literally just standing there looking at them going, can y'all please go read a book before you start spouting stuff? Brandon, you saw one of the live streams one of the cats had. And again, that was really my biggest, they're following behind Candace Owens like she's the black messiah. and she about as deep as mustard on a hot dog.
So yeah, the reason I raised my eyebrow when we mentioned Candace Owens is, again, I think the Republican Party is big enough tent for all people. I have different tactics than Candace Owens, so I don't necessarily think I'm in the same part of the wing as hers. But it's interesting that she's risen so fast, so quickly, when literally in 2016, she was running a website attacking against Trump. She was an anti-Trumper during the election, and now she's in the White House leading, and as you mentioned, some people are saying she's leading the Black conservative movement. I don't necessarily think that, but she's a factor of it. She's have a diverse following. Again, I'm open to it. It's not my tactics, but I think she's reaching an audience of people who may not be reached by my tactics, so I'm all for it. They're having a conversation.
Here's the thing, Shannon. I tweeted this. As a matter of fact, I sent them an email. I said, guys, you could try to deny us credentials. I said, I've interviewed nearly every major Black conservative in the last 25 years. I know brothers and sisters who are at the table, who are involved in public policy, who are engaged in things on the ground in states all across the country. I said, y'all are following behind a YouTuber.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There are folks that get involved and try to rise for whatever their own personal gain is, and there are folks that get involved because they actually want to see a change and a difference in their communities. And there is a difference in the strategies and tactics depending on what your end goal is. My end goal is my community. For some other folks, their end goal is their community. For some, it's not. And it's kind of obvious when it is and when it isn't.
See, I think, because one of the things that was interesting, a bunch of them were saying, this is the most Black folks ever been in the White House. I'm like, this happened about 10 times a year under Obama. I just want to let y'all know. I said, matter of fact, last time I was here, this whole room was filled, the hallway was filled, the other room was filled, and the foyer was filled. I said, so y'all may want to pump y'all brakes. But the second thing that was very interesting is that, like one brother came up to me, he said, you know, I'm upset because you attacked Kanye last week. I said, I didn't attack Kanye. I said, I deconstructed Kanye. He was offended that I fact-checked Kanye. And I said, brother, this is the problem that y'all have. I said, you don't want to be critiqued. You think that if Candace says something or Kanye West says something, and then I then critique it with facts, you call it an attack. I said, that's not an attack, that's a critique. I said, he's like, well, I just don't believe Black people should be attacking Black people. I said, well, don't say something that's wrong. I said, you're running, and they literally remained just spouting stuff off that there was no substance there, Brandon. Yeah. And that was the issue that I had the most, that they were just, like, you saw it, the one guy was like, well, you know, we got to end welfare. Like, Section 8 housing. Bruh, that's not welfare.
Yeah.
That's Section 8 housing.
Typically,
when you talk about welfare, you're talking about SNAP programs and things coming out of the Department of Agriculture. And it was like buzzword. It was just buzzword versus, I said, either y'all want to have a conversation that's about public policy and issues. Because one of them said, well, Democrats, you know, it's like, let me just keep giving that votes to Democrats. And I said, and tell me when do Republicans show up in Black communities to compete for them? And they could not articulate when it happens.
So on 2 points, just on that first point about Black conservatives showing up in the communities, tomorrow the Black Conservative Federation is hosting a National Day of Action. Deontay Johnson, they're going out across the country to do exactly what you're talking about, not just the show.
Where y'all going?
They're going in Georgia, Florida, Prince George's County, Chicago, all the places like that.
But what are they doing? What are they doing?
Again, I was just on to your point. I wasn't making.
No, I'm asking, what are they doing?
Going out canvassing, getting the message out, talking to voters. Either way they do that. Again, it's just to your anecdote about that part. Not a lot of them are doing it, but I want to give credit to the Black Conservative Federation for doing that. But to your other point about not
How many cities are they going to?
You got to check the website, at least 10 or so.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, well, check it out. But anyways, the main point was, to your point, I agree, about not being willing to be critiqued. I think the problem in politics today is that we have tribes in both parties who go to their corners and don't like to have a conversation. I want to give credit to your show. Every show you have a conservative or Republican on the show. More than any other show I've seen, either on basic cable, premium cable, or online. And I think that's what we're missing, is this ability to have a conversation and be contrite. I think iron sharpens iron, and I think what you saw today outside the White House, talking to a lot of young conservatives who've never had a conversation with someone outside of the thinking zone.
Oh, no. Trust me. And they were trying, and I was laughing at them, too. Because I said, look, if you're going to come for a big dog, I said, you better bring your stuff together. I said, I'm going to embarrass you. So let me tell you what happened with Lil' Candace. So She's on the microphone. She's on the megaphone speaking. Of course, we got our camera running. Stephanie's shooting her. And if we got some of that video, y'all can play it if y'all want to. And so all of a sudden, Fox News does an interview with her. So they literally walk over and they're right in front of me. So literally where Shannon is sitting, matter of fact, not even that far, they're doing the interview. So I'm standing there. I'm not going to move. So so this is exactly how I'm standing, like this here. Hands in my pockets. Just watching, and I'm watching the speaker, I'm watching other people, and watching them interview. So when the interview is over, she turns and sees me and just, and gives me this nasty look. And I just smile back. What are you doing here? And I said, I cover black stuff, Candace. This is a black event. And are you here just to smear us and lie about us? I said, no, there's a camera over there. We're actually recording what's going on. And this is where she screwed up. She says, well, look, I want to know, why did you call Republicans Uncle Toms?
You've never.
And sellouts.
You've never.
And you called me a coon. I said, pull out my card. I said, here's my card. You send me the evidence where I called you a coon. Oh, yes, you did. That's why I blocked you. I said, I will wait for you to send the evidence, and then you're going to apologize because what you just said is a lie. And see, that's the thing. So one of her little imps who was walking behind her, he says, oh, we got the evidence. I said, all you got to do is send me the email. I said, but I'm going to give you my card too, because you're going to apologize to me when I'm done. And then Charlie Kirk, he comes up to me, and he goes, hi, Roland. I'm like, how you doing? Okay. And he's looking at me. He's like, and I go, how you doing? Then I finally go, who are you? Because I'm Charlie Kirk. Like, I'd have to know who the hell Charlie Kirk is. And so, and he goes, I said, well, y'all clearly didn't, y'all took our credentials. I said, so when y'all gonna come on the show? Well, we'd be more than happy. I said, so when you gonna do it? I gotta ask Candace first. I said, why don't you go ask Candace? I said, because both of y'all are running from me. See, what I don't have is, because see, I got no respect for you when you go do the Hill TV, which is in the same building as us. But you say you trying to talk to black people, but you won't come talk to black people. See, that's my problem, Shannon.
See, okay, but again, there's an issue. There's a difference between folks that are about this life to make a change in people's lives and that are about this life to make a change in their own lives. And there's a difference in, again, the strategies and the tactics. For the reasons when we came to Baltimore and things were just so messed up in that city, and they still are, and we tried to do some more, I said to folks, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the corner of Penn and North, and we're going to register folks to vote. Well, you know, a lot of these folks, they can't vote, and they're you know, offenders, and okay, well, we're going to find out. And that's what we did. And there were some folks that were clearly outside of their comfort zone, but if you want to change the narrative, if you want to reach beyond the choir, you got to stop singing and talking to the choir. And the thing that you mentioned with some of the folks and people following them, there is a Pied Piper mentality at times where you're preaching to the choir listens, the choir responds. That's how, in my line of work, that's what you do. That's how it's done. So when you take that outside, people expect that same kind of response, and when they don't get it, they don't always know how to combat that. But if you're in it for the people, you got to deal with people.
Right.
Black people.
Period.
Right. And again, the point because it was very interesting, again, having this dialogue and these conversations with these young brothers and sisters who also, I know was killing Candace and Charlie, because I swear I took about 30 or 40 selfies out there, and they probably trying to figure out what the hell going on, because what they don't realize is they also watch me. Mm-hmm. Cats were saying, dude, I also watch your show. My parents watch your show. And see, that's the thing that a Candace and Charlie doesn't understand, is that black folks know black folks. So even though they may call themselves young black conservatives, they also know who the hell I am, and they've heard my commentary before. And so even if we engage in a back and forth, you're not going to get far. And here's the other thing that Candace is, look, and let me just be real clear, white conservatives love this, and y'all know the game that's being played. They love it when you have a black conservative who goes on television and uses plantation language and who says victimhood. We all know the buzzwords and all the different stuff along those lines. And what I keep saying is, if you think you're going to come and attack black people on a Fox News, or you're going to attack them in platforms and then think they're going to listen to you, you got a whole other thing coming. I said what you should be doing is presenting an agenda that somebody will go, okay, you know what? I'll listen to that. But if you tell somebody black, why you on the plantation? The first thing, ain't nobody black trying to hear slave language, okay? The other problem I have with that is they give this impression that black people who do vote Democrat somehow can't think. So I told one brother, I said, hold up. So are you an independent thinker, but they're not? Because the reality is African Americans are some of the most astute voting people out there. Because people say, oh, y'all, people just vote for Democrat. No. Black people act like black people know what they're doing. Black folks know exactly what they're doing when they're voting, Brandon.
Yeah, I don't want to disagree with that, but I do want to point out, to your point, when you say that some of the people you talked today outside the White House were saying that black Democrats are mindless and you don't know what they're voting for, that same argument has been used against black conservatives. So all I want to point out is
I use the same argument against, if somebody wants to use that argument against black people, I can use the same argument for white, poor folks who live in communities but here's the problem. The problem is if you are a black Republican trying to get black people to listen to you, you don't condemn them and demean them and act as if they are dumb and just following somebody else, as opposed to going, wait a minute, black people are making conscious decisions based upon a set of reasons that are clearly defined. And as long as Republicans are unwilling to engage with black people, hell, of course anybody black gonna consider you because you won't even come talk to black people.
And let's be clear, some Republicans, don't say all. We have a Republican come on the show later today who's not scared to engage with black people.
No, I got you.
So not all Republicans. But let me say this. To your point, I agree with you. We should not demean Democrats for voting how they vote, but I think that should be applied in a reverse way as well. I'm telling you, watching the coverage of Kanye West after his vote, even your coverage a little bit, Roland, I understand you don't agree with him, but the idea that you're basically devaluing him and his thought and his opinion,
no, actually,
because you don't agree, you were more factual.
No.
But watching Don Lemon's show, watching other people's shows,
I ain't Don Lemon.
I agree, but how the narrative.
Ain't nowhere in hell I'm Don Lemon.
I'm glad for that. That's why I come on your show. But overall, the narrative against Kanye, a lot of it was dehumanizing, and the fact that he could not think he's being used, he could not possibly make a conscious, informed decision to support Trump, and you can understand it. So I just feel like there's.
We also know he got some issues there. But Shannon,
see, there we go again.
No. Dude. Wait. His own wife said he's got some issues.
But
he himself told us he's got some issues.
A lot of people in the country.
No. He got like medicine-induced issues.
But I don't think you should make that as a case as why he's supporting Trump.
But what I'm saying is, okay,
keep it factual, keep it policy-wise, keep it factual,
Brandon, he left the White House and went to the Apple store in Georgetown and jumped on the damn table at the Apple store in Georgetown and began to rant and rave. Jumped off and ran out. Brandon,
Rich in 2018.
Brandon, do you know what we call that? Do you know what we call that?
Eccentric.
His ass crazy.
I was gonna say, put the rope down. Stop spinning.
Right.
Leave it alone.
Yes. Right. He was trying, Shannon, but damn it.
I'm just saying.
You know what?
Respect their beliefs. Don't go to policy and facts like you do. Don't talk about the person.
Go ahead.
Don't talk about personally.
Hear what you're saying. However, there are certain times in our history, both past and more recent, where there are some points to be made for doing some work on healthcare, specifically mental health care. I'm just gonna say.
Wait a minute. I had one dude who literally got mad. He said, well, man, why you dog Kanye? I said, bruh, you can't sit in front of Donald Trump and say that that we need mental health services when the budget of Donald Trump is cutting literally $20 billion from mental health services, a 17.9% drop. I said, dude, you can't go, Trump agreeing with him on that when his actual policy is the opposite of what he's preaching. Kanye was saying, we need help with mental services, and Trump is sitting there going, oh, look at Kanye, knowing full well he's slashing $20 billion for mental health services.
Like I said, a lot of the issues and things that we've seen in our society over the recent years stem back to some folks that need some assistance. Seriously, all jokes aside.
I love to stay on the policy topics of it and talking about that way. And you, like you said today, outside the White House, you were cutting them up based on policy, and that's all for that on facts. But when we get to the personal,
it hurt them too.
I saw it. When you get to the personal and dehumanizing part on either side, I just dislike that.
Well, again, Ray Baker immediately joined us, and again, Ray, I tweeted this: Candace Owens, you gonna apologize to me because see, she did the same thing when Darrell Scott had to roll up on me at the Republican National Convention, said, you called me an Uncle Tom and a coon. I said, show me the proof. I said, you ain't got proof. And he had to apologize for that screw up. See, this is the mistake that Candace Owens makes. First of all, I'm a grown-ass man. That's first. And the mistake that they make is they act as if I've never talked to black Republicans. And see, she's a Johnny-come-lately. 2016, to your point, she was running a Donald Trump, anti-Donald Trump website. She's no different to me than GOP black chick Crystal Wright, okay, who was trying to help my man Kendrick Meek get elected as Florida United States Senator, Democrat, and all of a sudden, a month later, she's like, yay, I'm a Republican. No, you're trying to get paid. We know the game recognized game. And Ray, that's what we're seeing here. And let me be real clear, I want you to speak on this. I've talked to a number of longtime black Republicans who've been at the table of power who say this is nothing but a joke.
You're right, Roland. And there are a lot of African Americans who try to jump into the Republican Party to do nothing more than to cut the line. They're not showing the intellectual wherewithal, the political skills.
Some have admitted it to me.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And gamesmanship to be able to be the type of political operative they would like to be in the Democratic Party, or where they may feel more comfortable. And so they think, well, if I'm the black Republican, I finally have an opportunity to cut the line. Now, to your point, Brandon, and I came in and heard a little bit of what you were saying toward the end, conversations about policy matter, right? We can agree to disagree. We can understand policy different. We can want different aims for our nation and thus would want to get there through different ways. But when folks have individualistic motives, right? And this is not a reference to either one of you two, but this is when folks have individualistic motives, then we see ultimately they're going to seek themselves first, and whoever happens to be the flavor of the month or the flavor of the day is where they're going to tie their horse.
And the bottom line is, again, I've seen Jesse Lee Peterson, I've seen Larry Elder, I've seen Star Parker, I've seen Deneen Borelli, I've seen this game, and actually, it's insulting to black Republicans who are putting in the work to see folks who somehow, where you have white conservative, typically evangelical money, throw their way at these folks. Look, and I said it, I blasted them on this show. I don't know why in the hell y'all keep giving money to Raynard Jackson, because Raynard ain't doing nothing with it. Y'all know I ain't lying, and nobody want to. But it's the same thing. It's like it's the game. It's the game, and black people recognize the game, and you're not serious, and that's the problem.
It is, and you find that, like I said, all over, in all walks and all lanes of the road.
So here's the great final comment. Go ahead.
But one of the things, though, about the game, politics, public policy are people's lives.
Yep.
And so if you want to hustle and you want to get a hustle to be a sports manager or in the entertainment business, whatever, we can laugh and joke
and
about that.
that's what we were talking about
when we
before.
talk about public
exactly.
policy,
that when you are, and that's what we're talking about, the difference between the strategy and the tactics, whether you are in it for your own personal gain or for people's gain.
Yep.
And there's a difference.
So here's the deal.
Clear.
Final comment on this topic here. To Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. Y'all want an actual conversation? Come to this set, and we'll do it for an hour. We'll do it for 2 hours. We'll do it for 3 hours. Because you know what? This is my show. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's mine. So if y'all are serious, if y'all want some of this, more than welcome to come sit in this chair. But I would advise you, do your homework before you walk in here, because it may not go well if you don't. Ask a whole bunch of people who being embarrassed on YouTube right now. Okay? Holla at a brother if y'all ready. Our next story, folks, we told you earlier this week that the federal judge would issue an order to protect the 53,000 voter registrations in Georgia that have been put on hold using the exact match rule. The vast majority of those are African American. The judge did issue the order forcing officials to notify people that registrations were on hold and giving them an opportunity to appeal the rejection. But Brian Kemp, the Georgia Secretary of State, who's also running for governor on the Republican side against Stacey Abrams, he is fighting back. He's asked for a delay in following the order so he can appeal the decision to the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Should the Secretary of State want folks to vote? We'll let you know if this latest attempt by Kemp to win the election by denying folks the right to vote succeeds. In the meantime, vote just to piss him off. All right, y'all, more possible voter suppression in Georgia after state Democratic officials said that more than 4,700 vote-by-mail applications were missing in DeKalb County. How do you find them missing? DeKalb is one of Georgia's most liberal-leaning counties. Sam Tillman, the chairman of the county election board, said there's no evidence that there are any missing or lost absentee ballot request forms. He said of the list of 4,700 names provided by Democratic officials, he could confirm that the county had only received 48 of the requests. Funny how this keeps happening in Democratic-leaning areas. Also, folks, again, as I said, in Texas, this came across the wire shortly before we came on the air. In Texas, there are people who've been complaining who've been voting straight ticket. This is the last election in Texas you can vote straight ticket. They've actually outlawed that. And folks have been complaining that when they go in and vote straight ticket, straight Democrat, the results are showing voting for Republican candidates. Well, what happened was Republicans actually are admitting that some 30% of the folks, those ballots that are being cast, the problem is actually taking place, but then they claim they also don't have the authority to fix it. Hello, I'm just saying, if that's a problem, you might want to be able to fix that. If 30% of your machines are showing that you're not voting for the person you intended to vote for.
Seems like that'd be an
kind of basic to me.
I'm just, across the board there.
I don't understand what that whole issue is there right there. All right, folks, we also got some updates in Florida and that governor race and the Senate races started between the governor's race between Andrew Gillum and Ron DeSantis. Last poll, the Gravis marketing poll has Gillum up by 551 to 46. The two also debated this week. The debate moderator, Todd McDermott, took it to DeSantis with this question listing DeSantis' connections to white supremacists. Oh, my God, this is so painful. It did not go well. Press play.
On live TV in August, on the first day of the general election campaign, you said of Andrew Gillum's run for governor, quote, the last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by embracing a socialist agenda. Fox News quickly disavowed your words, saying, quote, they do not condone the language. Now, you called some of this response absurd. You've made appearances at 4 of David Horowitz's Freedom Center events. Again, 4 separate times, 4 speeches. Among some of Mr. Horowitz's statements, quoting here, this country's only serious race war is against whites. You know, I'll ask the questions. Okay. It's not a McCarthy game, and I'm giving it. Wait for the question, sir. Okay. He also said, if blacks are oppressed in America, why isn't there a black exodus? Now, in 2015, in your speech before the Freedom Center, you said of Mr. Horowitz, David has done such a great work, and I've been an admirer. I've been to these conferences in the past, and I've been a big admirer of an organization that shoots straight, tells the American people the truth, and is standing up for the right thing. Those are his words. Here's my question.
He had not even made those statements then.
Yes, he had, sir. The first statement was made many years ago.
I mean, how the hell am I supposed to know every single statement somebody makes? Here's the deal. Let me just say this straight up. I've lived my life, whether it's athletics, whether it's military, whether it's serving as a prosecutor. When I was downrange in Iraq, we worked together as a team regardless of race. We had the American flag on our arm. We wore the same uniform, and we fought for the country. When I was a prosecutor, I stood up for victims of every race, color, and creed. That's the only way to do it in our country. It's something I believe in, and as governor, I will represent all the people. Everyone will get a fair shake. But I am not going to bow down to the altar of political correctness. I'm going to not let the media smear me like they like to do with so many other people.
Sir,
I'm certainly not going to take anything from Andrew Gillum, who's endorsed the Dream Defenders, which says Israel is an apartheid state, and which says the police and prisons have no place in justice.
Mr. Gillum, wait for the applause and go. And Mr. DeSantis, I'll point out, I wish you would have waited for the question, because I had a question and it's not what you think it is. Mr. Gillum, I'll give you a chance to respond now.
Well, let me first say, my grandmother used to say, a hit dog will holler. And it hollered through this room. Mr. DeSantis has spoken. First of all, he's got neo-Nazis helping him out in the state. He has spoken at racist conferences. He's accepted a contribution and would not return it from someone who referred to the former president of the United States as a Muslim, Nigger. When asked to return that money, he said no. He's using that money to now fund negative ads. Now, I'm not calling Mr. DeSantis a racist. I'm simply saying the racists believe he's a racist.
Mr. DeSantis.
Damn, Ray.
That's such a good line. That is such a good line. For one of the things that many black candidates don't get throughout the nation is the compliment of being folksy, right? That's a really good campaign thing. We talk about it often with regard to former President Bill Clinton, about his down-homeness. People thought good things about President George W. Bush, a guy I'd like to have beer with, that folksiness, right? Andrew Gillum, beyond being as wildly intelligent as he is, also has that everyday Southern charm. So when he starts that piece with, well, my grandmother says hit dogs holler, there are folks who may not understand all the heavy political and policy jargon, go, yeah, I know what that means, though. I know that means that the guy just right now is defending racism in a way that don't feel right. And at the end, when he ends it with, I'm not saying you're a racist, but the people who we know to be racist sure seem to like you.
Shannon, it's a little hard when you have a person who's giving your campaign a lot of money, who called Obama a Muslim nigga, and you don't get the money back.
Well,
that's kind of like, really?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I know there was one time in my life I was on a ballot, and I didn't accept checks from folks that I couldn't agree with, period. Now, that's a hard way to run a campaign, but it sure is a lot easier to sleep at night.
Brandon?
Yeah, just to your point, Ray. We talk about policies and all that's one conversation, and I probably will agree with DeSantis more than Gillum on some issues on policy. But talking about this race issue and other issues, like you're talking about the focusiness of it, he's making a lot of missteps. I don't see why he couldn't do something as simple as return the money. I don't know why he couldn't, understand that maybe saying monkey in the context running against a black man in America. Again, in a vacuum, it may not, make a big difference. But in the history of the 400 years of racism in this country, just some things you just don't do.
And also, when you're in a debate and your black opponent calls you Congressman DeSantis, and you keep calling him Andrew, and not affording him the respect of being a mayor, that's a problem.
So there's a lot of things when you move away from politics.
I mean,
Of course, right,
That's
absolutely
just
deliberate.
gamesmanship that people play across the board.
All right, folks, let's talk about HBCUs. First, we're going to go to Texas, where students at Prairie View A&M University have sued Waller County, Texas, over allegations the county is suppressing the voting rights of its residents. Yesterday, Waller County officials say they're expanding early voting for students at the HBCU, but that is still not enough. The attack on voting rights at Prairie View A&M has been going on for decades. Joining us right now is State Senator Royce West out of Dallas, one of two black state senators in Texas. Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. So, Royce, what is the solution? What are they doing? The students are saying that's not good enough.
Well, I understand and I concur with the students. The fact of the matter is when you do an analysis in terms of early voting for all of the cities, most of the cities are getting 106 hours. Prairie View, the city, and the campus is getting 64 hours. And so in order to be fair, the Waller County commissioners need to do exactly what they've done for other cities, provide at least 101 to 106 hours for the city of Prairie View and also the campus. That's what needs to be done. We're talking with the governor's office now to see whether or not the governor's office will use its considerable influence to make certain that the students of Prairie View and also the citizens of Prairie View are not disenfranchised.
You talk about that influence. What is the Secretary of State doing? What is he doing?
Frankly, the last conversation I had with the Secretary of State, he basically said he doesn't have the power to force the county to do anything. But my position is that you have the power of influence. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the counties get a lot of, dollars from state government that flow from the governor's office. And I'm hoping that the governor will use his considerable influence to get Waller County to do the right thing on behalf of citizens of the city of Prairie View.
And just so folks know, the reality is Waller County, largely white elected officials, they are afraid that these black students from Prairie View could very well run the tables when it comes to elections there. That's what the fear is.
You know what, Roland, I am so proud of those students. They said, okay, if that's the game you're going to play. And I'm proud of the president, Ruth Simmons there. She decided to make certain that those kids had a bus. And so while we're trying to work through all of this mess, that students wouldn't be disenfranchised, that if they want to go to a polling place, that there's a bus there that would be able to take them to those polling places. So as we try to work through these stupid logistical issues, we have students that are coming up with alternative plans being assisted by the university in terms of implementing it. So if students want to vote, they'll be able to vote.
All right, State Senator Royce West, keep us updated on what's happening there at PV.
We shall do so.
All right, then. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, folks. Speaking of stupid, let's talk about what's been happening in Maryland. There's been an ongoing case there for quite some time that you have not heard in mainstream media. We, of course, have been focusing on this for the last several years. It was 5 years ago that Judge Catherine Blake ruled that in maintaining the practice of unnecessary program duplication between HBCUs and traditionally white universities in Maryland, the state operates a dual and segregated system of higher education and doesn't serve black students well. Now, she ordered the state to resolve the underfunding issue. The HBCUs are saying that, frankly, they're owed upwards of $2 billion or more. The current Attorney General, Democrat Brian Frosh, has appealed the judge's decision. His opponent, Republican Craig Wolf, says that he will stop the appeal. The other issue that you're dealing with here is this thing goes back to the 1970s. And what happened was those HBCUs created programs and degree programs that were not being offered at your traditional white universities in Maryland. What happened was a significant number of white students were enrolling at these HBCUs because they wanted to major in those programs. Well, the traditional white universities saw that and then were allowed by the state to create duplicate programs at their universities. What do you think happened? The white students left the HBCUs and went to the predominantly white institutions. That is the basis of which the HBCUs are suing the state. Whether it's been Democrats and Republicans, they've been going back and forth in that state, not wanting to fund the HBCUs. This is very similar to what took place in Mississippi when Alvin Chambliss led the lawsuit against the state of Mississippi for the exact same thing. In North Carolina, they've also been making this argument. The reality is this. When most of our HBCUs, those state institutions, were created, they were grossly underfunded from the beginning. I don't know of a single HBCU in America that can say that they have been properly funded since they were actually founded. As a result, you've had politicians on both sides who have refused to do what's right and to fund these institutions to allow them to be proper, to grow and succeed, which is one of the reasons why when you go to HBCU campuses across this country that are state-run institutions, you'll see the kind of dilapidated buildings, services that are there as well, and then lack of scholarships and other things paid to faculty members that you don't see at traditionally white institutions. And so, Craig Wolf is running for Attorney General there. So, Craig, you say you will stop this appeal, but do you have other folks who agree with you that this needs to stop and they need to fund these HBCUs?
Well, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the appeal. My perspective is pretty simple. My opponent ran 4 years ago. He promised to settle it, hasn't done it, and then he goes to an appeal on the case. From my perspective, is you have to really seriously deal with the mediation, and he didn't do it for 4 years. I'll go right into it and make sure we get a settlement on the table that both sides can live with.
Another problem with that mediation is that we've seen where the governor's office, as well as others, suggested that they'll go ahead and they set aside $100 million over 10 years. The universities are owed $2 billion.
I don't know what the number is, but I'll tell you this. It's got to be decided by both sides, and ultimately the legislature and the governor have to agree. So you have to find a way to work across the aisle. You have to work with both sides, but you got to have the energy and the will to do it. And again, that's part of the problem, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, is because I don't think my opponent is focused on what needs to be done in the state, and this is just one area.
The issue that I have here is that this has been going on for a very long time. And it is as if officials in Maryland don't want to have to deal with this. And these universities have been spending, first of all, these are state universities. So the money they're spending state dollars suing the state.
Absolutely, and the defense of the lawsuit obviously is taking a lot of money out of it. My mother was a graduate of Coppin State, so I know what they can offer. I know the programs they can offer. But yeah, when you start duplicating the programs in the state system and drawing away students from those schools, they're going to have trouble surviving in the long run. We know there are only 100 left in the country. We've lost 15%, 20% over the last 20 years. If we don't properly fund these, give them the unique curriculum they need, then they will go under at some point. So I think the Attorney General of Maryland has to be focused on that case, among other things that you have to focus on.
Ray Baker, you have a question?
One of the things that I thought was interesting is that this lawsuit is really wide encompassing. In fact, there were arguments made by several HBCUs, particularly that a campus in the state of Maryland, state-funded University of Maryland, Baltimore County, many remember it for its sweet victory in the NCAA tournament, was created in 1960s, if I'm not mistaken, in the late 1960s. Meanwhile, Morgan and Coppin and Bowie State and University of Maryland Eastern Shore, that had been in existence since the 19th century, were still scrounging for dollars where the state would go and build a new PWI. So there's a myriad of issues there. You spoke about mediation and you spoke about bringing folks together. Specifically, I would ask you, would we just stand down and go ahead and allow the judge's award to move forward?
I think there's no award. The problem is she found in favor of the plaintiffs, but there was no agreed sum or so. You can send it back to the judge and say, Judge, you should just settle this, and then I don't think the result will be happy for maybe happy for anybody in the case. I think it's better if the Attorney General works with the plaintiffs in this case. The definition of a good business agreement is where everybody runs against the table and nobody's happy, right? Yeah. But the idea is you've got to take the time and effort to do it. One of the things that I find appalling is that the judge in December said that the Attorney General hasn't been meeting with the other side. And he's had this case for 4 years and he's sat on it. And again, he promised to bring the parties together to put curriculum and money on the table. And he said, I'm the guy to do it. And now he says, I'm blaming the governor. I'm blaming somebody else. So, again, it's his job to put the settlement on the table.
Real quick follow-up to that. If you talk about the challenges if the state legislatures and governors past of both parties have not done this thus far, what faith should HBCU supporters in Maryland have that this legislature or this governor, whether it's Mr. Jealous or Governor Hogan again, would get it done?
Well, I think Governor Hogan wants to settle this. I think he wants to put the universities in good stead. I think he wants to get that done, and I think the legislature does too. And I think the problem is the thing standing in the way has been the Attorney General. The Attorney General, his job is to create a settlement. That's his job. If he's going to try to settle, if he wants to appeal it, that's his perspective, that's his prerogative as well. But it's his job to put a settlement on the table that goes to the legislature and goes to the governor. I can't imagine in the state of Maryland that you put a reasonable settlement on the table to the legislature and the governor, they're not going to sign off on it. And of course, you'll be talking to them during the negotiations as well.
All right, then. Well, we certainly appreciate it. We'll see what happens. Thank you for joining us. And of course, we also would welcome the Democratic Attorney General in Maryland to come on the show, talk about why he's appealing this decision. Got lots of time for Election Day. All you got to do is call us. We'll have you right in the same chair. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Folks, Megyn Kelly today is over. NBC announced today the show will not be returning, and that hour of NBC's Today Show will be hosted by other Today Show personnel. How about the brother who was doing it before, Al Roker? A lot of you have been asking about Tamron Hall, but folks, she is no longer at NBC, and she is slated to launch her own syndicated talk show with ABC next year. But the controversy surrounding Kelly's blackface comments did provide an opportunity to talk to a wider, largely white audience about the hurtful and harmful practice of casually denigrating African Americans. Now, yesterday, we showed you my appearance on Megyn Kelly's show, which took place on Wednesday. Last night, ABC's Nightline did their own piece, and here's what they had to say.
The once unapologetic and uncompromising Megyn Kelly finds herself apologizing for the controversial comments about blackface, sparking outrage and an intense debate over cultural appropriation, all while the fate of her show hangs in the balance. Here's ABC's Lindsay Davis.
Take a look at what some now say is an offensive costume.
Tonight, Megyn Kelly's fate hangs in the balance, just days after the journalist defended wearing blackface on her morning show.
What is racist? Because so truly, you do get in trouble if you are a white person who puts on blackface for Halloween, or a black person who puts on whiteface for Halloween. Like, back when I was a kid, that was okay as long as you were dressing up as like a character.
Kelly and her panel were discussing costumes like this one, worn by Real Housewife Countess Luann de Lesseps, dressed as Diana Ross.
She made her skin look darker than it really is, and people said that that was racist. And I don't know, I felt like, who doesn't love Diana Ross? She wants to
The comments sparked fierce backlash, even inside NBC, with Kelly taken to task on air by members of her own network.
She owes a bigger apology to folks of color around the country, because this is a history going back to the 1830s, minstrel shows to demean and denigrate a race.
And according to Variety, NBC News Chairman Andrew Lack condemned those remarks during a staff town hall, saying there is no place on our air or in this workplace for them.
The level and frequency of criticism was pretty unprecedented. This is supposedly someone who is one of the top talents on your network, and you basically turned against her.
Kelly first apologized in an email to her colleagues, saying in part, "I realize now that such behavior is indeed wrong, and I am sorry," she wrote. "The history of blackface in our culture is abhorrent, the wounds too deep. I've never been a PC kind of person, but I understand that we do need to be more sensitive in this day and age." But that wasn't enough. Just 24 hours after the initial comments.
And I want to begin with 2 words. I'm sorry.
A second apology. Some say too little too late from Kelly, who had a history of making racially charged statements on her Fox show, The Kelly File.
Santa Claus should not be a white man anymore. Jesus, it was a white man too.
I think anyone who has followed her career is going to be surprised. NBC executives were very aware of her history, and they decided to risk it and take a gamble on her, and now it's blown up.
In response to the fallout, NBC decided to use Megyn's live show the next day as a teachable moment, inviting journalist Roland to speak to the issue of blackface and cultural appropriation.
Roland, I did listen yesterday, and what was very clear in what I read and what I heard is that the history here, when it comes to that term and this issue, is deeply disturbing.
I think the problem is, for African Americans, we know the history, and too many white Americans don't know or won't accept it.
What was your initial reaction when you heard Megyn Kelly's comments on Tuesday?
Well, certainly it was shocking to hear someone who has been in national media for a very long time actually say they didn't really understand what the big deal was about blackface.
What's wrong with the PC defense, and why do you think so many people had a problem with that?
When she made her initial apology, and she used the phrase PC, that still rankles people, because what has happened is, when we've had discussions historically about issues of race, in the last 20, 30 years, it's been put into this framework of, oh my God, we're PC. And so, as if we can't talk about these issues and not be upset about it. What they have to understand is that allowing those things to just take place over these decades and centuries has been the problem. We must deal with racism. We must deal with bigotry.
For decades, cartoonish portrayals of black people appeared in songs, books, movies, and as enduring American characters.
You know what trouble I was talking about?
Like Mammy, Uncle Ben, and Aunt Jemima.
When you see all those images, you now begin to understand how white supremacy was able to tell African Americans, not only are you second-class citizens, but you're less than, you're ugly, you're nasty, you're nothing.
Flash forward to today. In 2013, Julianne Hough darkened her skin when she dressed as a black character on the TV show Orange is the New Black. She later apologized on Twitter, writing, "It certainly was never my intention to be disrespectful or demeaning to anyone in any way. I realize my costume hurt and offended people, and I truly apologize." And on college campuses, where costume parties make headlines year after year. The disturbing phenomenon was even depicted in the 2014 movie Dear White People.
We've seen this. How many white fraternities and sororities have been suspended because they had thug parties and ghetto parties? People don't understand that that caricature comes right out of the minstrel shows.
Something's a little off about Luann's costume.
And that Real Housewives Diana Ross costume, even the Housewives cast shocked by her choice.
Luann's costume is so disrespectful.
I think she's tone deaf when it comes to cultural stereotypes.
Now, obviously, this is something that we have seen before. Halloween seems to be a trigger. What is it that you would say to white people who are now saying, oh, so I can't dress up like Diana Ross? I can't dress up like my favorite black personality for Halloween?
You can dress up like Diana Ross. Just don't put no damn black paint on your face.
Kelly's position on the costume has sparked a broader conversation about race.
The issue is, in this nation, we have a long history of taking what is black and then whites then doing it and enriching themselves, and black folks going, what the hell? We created that, and now all of a sudden you switch it up and now it's accepted. That's the root and the foundation of cultural appropriation.
Meanwhile, reports that Kelly is out at NBC have been circulating but remain unconfirmed.
As we speak, there is a meeting scheduled between Megyn's lawyer and NBC executives for Friday morning. And after that meeting, we will have a clearer sense of what Megyn Kelly's future is.
After Netflix confirmed that the cast of House and Cards backed out of an upcoming appearance on her show in the wake of the controversy, NBC decided to air a rerun of Kelly's show today while execs mull over exactly what to do. It's a stunning fall for Megyn Kelly, who was a coveted get for NBC after she left Fox News. The network reportedly signed her to a multi-year contract worth nearly $70 million.
This is just a really unfortunate situation on all grounds. I think Megyn Kelly is an undeniable talent as a broadcaster, but seems she was miscast in this role and then made a big misstep.
While it's unclear if this is the end of Kelly's career at NBC, it is perhaps the beginning of a much-needed dialogue in America.
When I walked off of her show, I tweeted that. I said, this should not be the end of this conversation. It should be the beginning of a conversation. We must have a reckoning in this country.
For Nightline, I'm Lindsay Davis in New York.
All right, y'all. Megyn Kelly's out. What do you think?
They're gonna give you the time slot?
Hell no. No, let's just be real clear.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, I think, frankly, for a lot of these white male executives, I'm too black. Even though the reality is, black folks, 40% of daytime viewers are African American.
Yeah, but they don't see them.
Oh, they know. They know.
They don't see that.
They see the 60%.
They just want to see, what they see has to be correct.
Well, I mean, I'm also concerned at how many times must Al Roker have to G-check his own colleagues for their stupid comments and opinions time and time again. So often, they are making Al Roker have to ostensibly look like a bad guy. They need to have the permanent drink that he can sit there and stare every time that someone says something foolish, as we remember from the Rio Olympics in Brazil. Because it's foolishness.
Here's the deal. First of all, Megyn Kelly did not lose this show because of blackface this week. That was the final nail in the coffin. This was a bad marriage from the moment they said I do. The reality is she was bad blood between her and NBC personnel, between the comments the race-based comments she made at Fox News, also booting out two very high-profile and popular African Americans, Tamron Hall and Al Roker, replacing them with her. Her ratings did not even match the ratings that they had, and it was costing them more money by doing that, because she was getting paid anywhere from $20 to $23 million a year, and those two were not even making combined close to $20 million a year. So this was simply, okay, last straw, because after controversy, that's why she lost her job, not solely based upon Tuesday.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a prime case of failing forward. As you mentioned, her ratings have been dropping for the past 2 years. She's been doing hiccups, whether it was with multiple interviews on the show. But she's leaving this contract now. She's getting $60 million from her contract. She can't get out of it. They had to pay her no matter what. I want to know what.
Oh, not that she can't get out of it.
Oh, yeah.
They can't get out of it.
They can't get out of it. But I'm
she
curious.
Ain't trying to get out of it.
I'm curious to see what happens next if they bring back Tamron or Al Roker, or who's going to take the new time slot. They said they'll extend it again for Today Show.
Well, yeah, but what's going to happen? They said they're going to be using other Today Show personnel for the 9 o'clock hour. But let me address Ray's point. Shannon, go ahead.
So, regardless to all that, obviously it looked like a reason, the last nail, as you said, to get rid of her. Because I looked at the clip and then I looked at it again and I said to myself, in all honesty, she didn't say anything that most folks that look like her have been thinking. She did not say anything different than they think. She just said it. So when you know that, you realize that there's obviously a lot more going on behind the scenes than in front of the scenes. But I do think that it gave an awesome opportunity for some dialogue that there needs to be a whole heck of a lot more, but it gave an awesome opportunity to have a conversation on national TV in front of a different audience where folks felt guilted into listening.
See, here's the thing that I'm going to go ahead and say, and that is this here. Because trust me, people have been hitting me up, oh, Roland, my God, they should put you in that time slot. But when I remember I did an interview with Mark Lamont Hill. He was doing the Huffington Post, and he asked me, this was in 2013, May of 2013, why I didn't get a show at CNN. And one of the things that I said is it was very difficult for a lot of white executives at CNN to have a subjective host with an opinion having a show. That was a fact. All these people, you pulling the race card. No, it was a fact. They told me, they gave a show to Elliot Spitzer. Elliot Spitzer, who got busted with a prostitute and had to resign as the governor of New York. He got a show, an opinion show, with Kathleen Parker. I put the work in all those years. The issue that you have here is this here, and whether people want to own it or not. Let's just be real. If I'm too black, was Megyn Kelly not too white?
That's different.
Yeah. Oh, I know it is. But I'm making the point, and what I'm saying to NBC executives, and that is, guess what? How did I sound when I went on her show on Wednesday? How did I sound breaking down history and the connection as well? It's amazing. A whole bunch of white folks understood what I was saying on the show as well. And it's this whole thing as if somehow we don't have that capacity to be able to break things down in that particular way. And the reality is, in this society, we, black people, are expected to sit our blackness on the shelf and set it aside and then be the kind of black person that they really want to see, which is vanilla black, as opposed to saying, you know what, do you. See, everybody forgets. This happened to Stuart Scott. Stuart Scott, the language he used, oh my God, that's just too street. All the white sports writers and talk show hosts couldn't stand Stuart Scott, but he was the most popular anchor on ESPN because you know what? He did him and let him do him. And so maybe the NBC folks should understand that. And you actually might see your numbers go up because people want to see authenticity, not fake. Simple as that. Folks, don't forget to support us at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your donations really help us do what we do, covering events today, of course, like we did the Young Black Conservatives meeting at the White House. And again, Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. Anytime y'all want to have this conversation or get some of this smoke, feel free. Feel free. Feel free to come to the cookout. Feel free to come to the cookout.
Water's fine. Come on in.
Feel free to come to the cookout. We'll have you at any time. I mean, even black Republicans will vouch. They should come, right, Brandon?
They should. Iron sharpens iron.
Shannon, should they drop by?
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
I gotta be honest, Brandon. They gotta be iron first to get sharpened.
Ooh.
Well.
Hey.
Ooh. Don't forget, folks, again, support us at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Don't forget also, on the weekends, we also show all of our shows during the week, so look forward to that. We've also got some special stuff for you this weekend. We'll be live streaming my State of Black Issues discussion we had in Indianapolis with Reverend Al Sharpton, Susan Taylor, and Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. That's also going to be live streamed this weekend as well, so I look forward to it. Yo, Howard University, your homecoming is this weekend. I will be on the campus tomorrow. I got to do MSNBC first, so I'll be a little late to the game. But y'all don't watch the game anyway.
Come find me at the tailgate,
y'all
Roland.
there for the halftime.
Come find me at the tailgate.
Come find you at the tailgate?
Come find me at the tailgate. I'll walk you over to the Sigma tent.
Okay, let me help you out. Let me help you out, Ray. When I come to the tailgate, it ain't hard to spot me. Just look for the crowd.
Selfie sticks.
Don't be a hater. Don't be hating. I'm just stating. All right, folks, y'all have an absolute great weekend. We're going to go into extra gear next week for the election. And so don't forget, go out and vote. Cast your ballot. Early voting, absentee, get it done. If you don't vote, shut the hell up. Holla!